Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Africa's First Consultancy weekly live show. Today we have a very special guest with us today, Stephen Bhasera. As you already read on my Facebook post, that Stephen is a phenomenal young man that is doing a lot of amazing things out there. Stephen, welcome to Africa's Post Consultancy, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Very happy to be here.
Awesome. So to start off the talk for tonight, I'm sure a lot of our viewers out there, they are very excited to hear a lot about your rugby, to hear a lot about your academics, your leadership, and everything that you've accomplished. But I think we can start off by just knowing who is Stephen Bhasera, outside of all those other remarkable achievements. If you can just share with our viewers a bit more about you before we tap into those areas.
Oh, wow. Who is Stephen Bhasera? I'm still trying to figure that out. Yeah, I'm Stephen Bhasera. I was born and raised in Zimbabwe. I was born in Harare, but mostly raised in a small town in central Zimbabwe called Kadoma. Went to school there before moving to high school in Eskodini, where we were both in school, actually. So, yeah, I mean, that's me. I then went on to play professional rugby in South Africa after school, and I studied law at the University of Johannesburg, and then moved to London late last year. So that's a bit about myself. But yeah, that's me. I'm a Zim boy through and through, born and raised. So yeah.
Oh, perfect, man, perfect. I think you nailed it right there. Yeah, just to start off, when can you tell us a bit more about when did the rugby start for you? I mean, when did you find your passion to start playing rugby? At around what age did you?
Yeah, so it was a bit of a weird one because I can remember exactly what happened and when it happened. I was about 8 or 9 years old, so I was already involved a bit in sports in school. It was a very small school, so it didn't have a lot of kids, and so rugby team is 15 people, and we didn't have that many kids. So what we had was hockey. We had a swimming pool, and we had cross country, which I hated to this day. I hate running. At some point, my sister used to go to my younger brother and sister used to go to a preschool across the road from where we lived, literally across the road. And we went to this fun day thing there, and I saw some kids. I literally remember this like yesterday. I saw some kids that I didn't know. They were playing with this egg-shaped ball. And I was like, gosh, what is that? And what was weird was like they were tackling each other, which was really strange to me because I'd never seen like people like jumping on each other and pulling each other to the ground. So that like sparked my curiosity. So it was only 3 years after that my school actually introduced rugby, and I became really good at it. I was always big for my age, so not just tall but actually big as well. So I mean, hockey and cricket is great. Like, it requires a bit of finesse, though. You would know this. Like, there's a bit of skill, a bit of finesse, uh, and I was always more of the violent type. And so it was perfect for me. It was perfect for me. Like, tactically, a very tactical game, but also a very physical game, which was a perfect combination for my type of character. So, I mean, I became fascinated at about 9, but I probably only started playing around 12, and I got quite into it, and quite invested in it very quickly from there.
Yeah, amazing story, man. It's really entertaining, and you touch on a very a lot of things that I'm sure a lot of viewers out there, youngsters that are watching today, would really resonate a lot with your stories. I mean, I personally resonate with your story, from seeing people playing cricket and not knowing what's going on to start joining and start playing cricket there. So that's actually a fantastic story. So yeah, from the age of 12, you start playing rugby and you then move to Falcon College. I'm sure at Falcon College, the rugby there is much more structured. And tell me, how was the transition like to moving from primary school where rugby was, as you said, was not so much of a structured game onto Falcon College in high school, where rugby is a bit more structured and there's a bit of systems and
Yeah.
Zimbabwe age group, provincial, and all that type of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it was fairly easy, to be honest with you. I'm sure you'll get to it, but like the move from high school to the professional game, now that is worlds apart. But moving from primary school to high school wasn't so difficult because I felt I did I got into the system quite quickly. And when you were as tall and as big as I was at that age, it was very easy. Like, and rugby as 13 or 14-year-old is still relatively easy when you're as big as I was, right? Like most of the kids are not as physical, and so it's easy to stand out. It was easy for me to stand out, and it's not like I was training a whole lot more than I was. Like we had cross country at Falcon in the first term, which was just nuts. Cross country and house athletics, like. Uh, but I think all Zim schoolboys can kind of resonate with that. So the fitness was tough, but like apart from that, I mean, it was quite an easy transition, for me personally, and I actually liked it. I liked the idea that I could be with other kids who cared about the sport as much as I did. So that was fun.
No, absolutely fantastic. Uploads are fantastic to hear. As you already touched on it, as you said, I was going to touch on it. I'm sure you say the transition from primary school to high school was relatively okay, relatively easy, as you said. What about from high school to professional? Because I'm sure, like you played Zimbabwe age group rugby, and I'm sure at that point it was very competitive. How much of a big difference would you say high school age group rugby is from moving to the professional structures, especially as a student as well, balancing off your rugby and your academics. And law is a very demanding course as well. How was that transition, and how did you manage to balance the two?
Yeah, worlds apart, worlds apart. Like it's a different game, and the it's rugby, but it's taken to another extreme, especially in South Africa. Obviously, it's a rugby mad country with a very proud tradition, 3 World Cups. Um, so nobody prepares you for the level of dedication that it takes. So there's three things. There's the step up in terms of the strength and physicality that's needed. Obviously, like rugby is a high collision sport. There's a step up in the amount of commitment that is needed in terms of hours, because when you're playing rugby in high school, you're training maybe 2, 3 times a week, and you're training for 2 hours max because you've got school, you've got other commitments. The school tells your parents that academic is questionable, but like so you have that. You definitely have to prioritize school. So there's a step up in terms of physicality that's required. There's a step up in terms of commitment, time commitment that's required. There's a huge step up in terms of competition. So obviously it's a much bigger country with a lot more schools. So, and there's a step up in terms of skill that's required. In Zim, our rugby is not nearly as competitive as it used to be. You hear the stories from the 80s and the 90s and the early 2000s when schools rugby teams in Zim used to tour outside the country and actually dominate, playing against really good schools. It's not the case anymore. So in terms of skills, in terms of like a high level position, like I was playing as a prop, worlds apart. They don't teach you how to scrum properly in Zim, and you get by if you're big enough and you're strong enough, like I was. So it's definitely a transition. I mean, I can talk about the cultural transition as well, and the language barrier. It's still a very white sport in South Africa, and Afrikaans is the language that they prefer to use, and they're not very accommodating. So there's a lot of factors that you kind of have to. It's a whole new world in a sense. So that's literally what it is. Yeah.
No, absolutely. No, I agree with you with the all barriers and the whole different type of game that you experience when you're moving from high school to professional rugby. So, I mean, what sort of advice would you give, a young high school potential professional rugby player or sportsman out there what can they do when they're still in high school at the moment to prepare themselves adequately for a potential professional sporting career?
You mean in Zim specifically?
I'll say broadly in Zim or also in South Africa as our
Yeah.
audience have a...
Yeah, I mean, I would say if maybe if I were to address my 17, 8-year-old self, 18-year-old self, is expect competition, prepare your body and mind for competition. Um, if you're playing rugby specifically, I can only speak to my experience as a rugby player, but I think that this goes for most sports actually. Um, Try and get yourself in the mindset where you are conducting yourself with a high degree of professionalism all the time. Because at the end of the day, those that kind of make it to the level that I did, it's not so much talent anymore. Because we all had talent in school, right? And talent is enough in school. Like people tell you you're great and like you're really talented, you get to play. But like at some point, talent is no longer enough. You know, so at some point, those who really want it in terms of are willing to put in the hours, are willing to do what it takes, are willing to listen um, to to coaches. Those are the people that set themselves apart. Those are the people that distinguish themselves at that level. So he's high standard. You're willing to sacrifice some things. Yeah, I was listening to, and I'm ranting now, but I was listening to Devin Booker. He's an NBA player. He plays for the Phoenix Suns. And he was being interviewed on this podcast, and he's been really successful. He was in an NBA final this year. They didn't win, but he's really young. He's 24. So he was being asked, what were the parties like when you were in high school? What were the parties like when you were in uni? I was like, what parties? Like I used to wake up, I'd go to school, I'd have double training after school, and then I'd go for a lunch break, and then I'd train again. By the time I got home, I was so tired, I had no time to think about parties because I knew I had to do it again the next day. So, I mean, that's what it takes. Like a lot of people don't want to hear that, but especially if you're coming from a Zim system or a system from a smaller country, you have to distinguish yourself through your work ethic, and it shows. Your coaches can see, your teammates can see. Um, you don't have the luxury of being able to, you know, uh, have as much fun. I mean, by all means, have fun. It's a journey, experience it. But you don't have the luxury of, if you really want it, you don't have the luxury of, being able to make mistakes. So that's the advice that I would give. Get yourself into a professional framework, into a professional mindset. And I think if I had done that a lot earlier, I would have seen results in my career a lot earlier. Yeah.
And absolutely, I mean, that's absolutely spot on right there. And I'm sure a lot of people watching out there would really take that advice and use it. As you said, it's a big transition, and it's very important for you to have that professional mindset that you spoke about. Now, I have one question that a lot of people have been, I would say, drilling me on to ask you. They've been saying, head of school at Falcon College, best geography results at A level in the world, you know, professional rugby, law graduate, now in London, about to work for a top tier law firm in London. What's your secret?
Oh, you know what, Rez? I I was just very I was very fortunate early on. I mean, I don't think there's necessarily a secret, um, but I've been blessed with a few things. So one, I've been blessed with talent, which a lot of people are blessed with, but tend to take for granted in my experience. I've been blessed with talent. I've been blessed with family that have supported me, which a lot of people don't have. Of course, I've been blessed with a unique work ethic. I decided very early on what I wanted in my life. Like this about me. Since our high school days, I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't do any of that. I decided pretty early on what I wanted in my life, and that those things that most people my age chase after um, didn't have a part to play in that. So I mean, I'll go out with the boys and have a jolt and have a good time, but you won't see me. Yeah, you won't see me doing some of these things. And so I was fortunate that I had a vision for my life, and I chased it pretty early on. But I've had support structures around me, so it's not necessarily that I've got a secret or that I'm special. It's just like I decided to put my head down. I decided that I wanted to be different, and I was fortunate and blessed enough to have the people in my life that were willing to help me. We didn't grow up with a lot. We grew up in a very small town. If there are any Zimbabweans out here watching, like you've been to like these towns like Kadoma, Kwekwe. Yeah, we didn't even live in the town. We lived like in the rural area of the town, like it's like out in the bush. So it's not like we had a lot, but I had parents that were willing to make a lot of sacrifices for that. So very thankful for that. But as well, it was me deciding. The difference was me deciding what I wanted in my life, and you know pushing myself to conduct myself every day in a way that aligns with those goals. So yeah, no secret. I've been blessed. I've been a bit lucky, and I've had the right combination of work ethic and opportunity. That's really what it is. Yeah.
No, absolutely inspiring, man. I'm sure lots of people out there would really, take the advice that you're giving, especially as high school kids and varsity kids. Drinking, smoking, partying can, deviate people from their goals a lot. So I think the advice that you just gave is absolutely solid. And it's a secret on its own, although you don't really say it's a secret, but absolutely amazing, man. Just also to touch on a few things. I had a question I wanted to ask you with regards to leadership. You know, um, what do you think people out there can do? What do you think people out there can invest in to groom themselves as a leader? Because I mean, you have taken up a lot of leadership roles. You've done well in those leadership roles. What advice would you give youngsters out there who are looking to develop their leadership qualities?
So first of all, listen. Like I I had to learn to listen. Listening is a skill. Listening, you can hear someone and not necessarily be listening to them. So listen to people, engage with people, um, and be willing to put yourself in the position of the other person. So leadership, in my opinion, is not there's a soft skill element that comes with leadership, and this is just my own theory and my own experience. Definitely a soft skill element that comes with leadership. So listening skills, communication skills. So you want to get better at being able to speak. Uh, but Um, there's also a competency element that comes with leadership. If you are not competent and everybody can see it, you will struggle to lead. So people are not willing to follow that which they're not confident in. So you have to put yourself up there as competent in whatever it is, whether that's on the rugby field. That doesn't necessarily rugby field, the hockey field, the cricket, whether that's in the boardroom. It doesn't mean being the smartest in the room. It doesn't necessarily mean being the best player on the field, but it means reaching a level of competency which is higher than the average person in the group. So you put yourself ahead as competent, first of all, and then develop the ability to listen, develop the ability to speak, like increase your perspective. So especially today, we're working in a very diverse kind of world. We can have this call right now live. You're in Joburg, I'm in London. Like there are people tuning in from around the world. And that's the world that we work in. So you want to definitely increase your perspective in terms of understanding people's cultures, understanding people's background. Read, guys. Read like crazy. You know, um, learn something that is not just about your culture because it is a very culturally diverse world that we have to operate in. And the more people that you can associate with from different cultures, the greater impact that you can have. Because ultimately, that's what it is. Leadership is about being able to impact people to reach a certain goal. So you want to have your competency, so be the best or be near the top of the pack in whatever it is, so that people don't have a problem following you. And then develop your soft skills, be able to listen, be able to communicate, and be able to advise and understand. So that's what I would say for sure.
No, I think that's a great response, man. Thank you for that. That's a very great response. Now taking questions from our viewers. There's a question from Godwin Mamiyo. I'm sure you know him really well from the days at Falcon College. Godwin said that you mentioned the challenges sports people face in Zimbabwe. How can one overcome these challenges in the Zimbabwean environment?
Oh, wow. It's such a loaded question because it's something I'm so passionate about. You know, you watch the Olympics and we literally have 5 athletes representing a country that has such a proud sporting heritage. And it breaks my heart to see what has happened. Um, but like, if I was someone in Zim trying to, um, say, play professional sports, with the dream of playing professional sports outside the country, because you can't really have a dream of playing it inside the country. You can't make a living off it. But again, I would focus on trying to get the best coaching and focusing on trying to skill up, focus on trying to get my profile out there. So make sure you have your videos available online. Make sure that you are doing well in school. Like, kids do well in school. It makes such a huge difference, because especially if you're all my track people, my rugby people, whatever sport it is, right? Hockey people, cricket people know this. If you want a scholarship, which is the first step to having a shot at your scholarship, you have to pass. You have to do well in school. So do well in school. Build up your professional profile. Make connections, outside the country. Make connections within the country. Try to access coaching, so there is no, I guess there is no one formula. But what I would say is make sure you get in. Definitely make sure you get into uni on a scholarship as a matter of priority, and you can't do that if you're not passing. So yeah, it is a difficult one because you want to be able to give advice that kind of makes sense, um, and ways to hack the system, but there is no system in Zim, as we know. So it's a very difficult situation. So yeah, but that's all I can say. Yeah.
No, I think that's a great response, man. I think you really touched on the fundamentals, especially on school, and that's going to moving on to my next question that I had for you is, you touch on people should really go to school, they should really pass. What advice would you give to a high school, kid out there that is very good in sport? And when you're in high school and you're very good in sport, all you think about is your sport. You don't really think about another career you can have. I mean, you're into law now, you're going to a legal career, I'm going to a legal career as well. But I'm sure at one point we never thought in any way that we'll be heading towards that direction. What advice would you give a kid in high school that's very good in sport on them trying to pursue or trying to see what else they can be good at in terms of academic or other professional careers except the sporting?
Sorry, I missed the last part of the question. I think it was just frozen for a second. Yeah.
Oh, yes, yes. I was saying, what advice would you give a high school kid out there that's so passionate about sport and all they can see they're in a tunnel vision, all they can see is a professional sporting career, in actually not only focusing on that, but trying to find something else they might be good at, whether it might be law, medicine, or other aspects of life, because sports is limited and there's other things in life that they can get.
Yeah. No, listen, I think we're very fortunate now. In the kids these days are very fortunate in the sense that there is easy access to the internet. I would say, attend some law, I mean, not law, but like some career fairs online. Look at what you want to do. I think the heart of your question is about perspective as an athlete. I was very fortunate in the sense that I was always a naturally kind of gifted academic, but I know a lot of people who put so much emphasis on their sport only to find out that they couldn't hack it at the professional level for whatever reason. Either they were injured or, they just were not good enough. Because ultimately, 99, 98% of us are not going to be good enough as athletes, especially outside of the country. So, you have to understand that should your sport not work out, there's life after sport, right? Um, and I'm a prime example of this. The reason why I'm retired is not because I want to be retired. It's because I had a training accident where I fractured my face, lost a bunch of teeth in the process, and just had like severe head damage. So if I had been in a position where I had not been studying and had not graduated with my law degree, I might be finding it very difficult right now in terms of what the next step is. So I think it's important to have the understanding that one, there's a good chance that you won't make it. Actually, statistically speaking, you probably won't. And then two, there's also the chance that whenever you're working with your body, something can go wrong. So you don't have any control. You don't know whether you're going to tear your ACL. You don't know whether you're going to get a fracture. You don't know whether you're going to break an ankle and then have to struggle with 12 months of you don't know that. So I would say definitely look into other interests, look into other careers, and put in an effort at school. Put in an effort at school. That's what I would say. Make you know make give yourself an opportunity, as many opportunities as possible. But yeah, diversify your interests. Yeah, that's what I would say.
No, absolutely great advice. I think, when you're touching on those things of not probably making statistically and also, getting injured and all that, I resonate a lot with what you're talking about because I went through, similar stances in my own potential cricketing career, only to find myself in law now as well. So yeah, man, I think that advice is spot on and it will really make a difference to the viewers out there. Unfortunately, we know we've run out of time. 30 minutes like goes by so quickly. But, just to, ask the last question, you spoke about the importance of reading and broadening your perspectives or learning new cultures. I see you read a lot, you read, you write a lot. Um, what what books would you say someone can read in order to to boost their mindset, to get themselves in a mind frame that can really be helpful? Like, for example, I really enjoy reading personal development books. They really help a lot in a lot of ways. What books would you say um, would help? And what are your top two books that you tell someone who hasn't read any novels or who hasn't read any books
Oh
can
wow.
actually start reading?
Oh, that's a tough one. I've read so many, and I've read so many good ones. Um, I actually think I have it here on my bookshelf. So this is a really old book, but don't let that fool you. I think it was first published in the 1930s. It's called How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. It is Leadership 101. It is like the grandfather of self-help books in that regard. So and it's really easy to understand. It's really short. So if you're not somebody who likes reading a lot of words, it's very easy to digest. I recently read a good one called The 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. Very good kind of underlying psychology. So it's a lot more science based and science backed. But yeah, there's a lot. I mean, there's a lot that I could recommend. I've just been through so many books and through so much literature. It's hard to pinpoint a few specific ones. But I would be very happy to do like a top 10 or a top 20 list for your viewers if anybody would be interested in that. Um, but yeah, those are the ones that come to me right now. Yeah.
No, absolutely. And, and then on the part of, how important was reading for you, in developing a certain mind frame or a certain perspective about things. And also,
Yeah,
improving yourself, as a human being, not only academically, professionally, but also in your personal life.
yeah. No, it was crucial. I was I kind of grew up in a time and in a place where TV was not much of a big thing. So I had books, and I had to read as by necessity. I've always been an introvert. And whatever social skills I have now, it's because I've had to actually work on it. But like I was always a very weird kid, that you put it that way. So I had to read, and it's been so important for me, the idea, that you can be somewhere completely different in the world and see someone's perspective, um, that you don't know. It's the idea that you can, you can't become what you've never seen. And I always say this, like, you can't dream of something that you have never, seen or have had modeled, which is why I'm very passionate about, like, positive role models, especially for young Black men. But you can't do something that you've never seen. And that's the nice thing about reading. You can get into the perspective of somebody who you've never seen, somebody on a completely other side of the world, um, and understand what the world looks like, what it functions like, and how it works, and educate yourself. So it's been huge in my life, and it's been huge in terms of allowing me to dream beyond my immediate circumstances and beyond what I see around me now. So very, very important skill, and all the greats do it. Regardless of what you think about Bill Gates, the man reads 50 books a year. So, and that's on top of all the other stuff he does. So very, very important skill. Vusitembe Kwayo reads also about 50 books a year, and these are all leaders, and great thinkers. So yeah, definitely, it's a very useful skill, and has made a difference in my life.
Well, that's a great answer, Stephen. I have so many questions for you, and I'm sure our viewers have so many questions for you, but 30 minutes, I think we might need to
Yeah,
revise this 30 minutes time frame because it's such a short time and it goes by so quickly, especially if speaking about such fundamental, such important things and such enjoyable things as well at the same time. So from Africa Sports Consultancy side, I'd like to really appreciate you for taking your time, to speak to us and to speak to our viewers and to share some words of wisdom, which I think would really make a difference to someone's life that is watching or that will be watching today's show. So thank you so much for joining us, and we are looking forward to inviting you again, hopefully in the future, to share more of your wisdom and knowledge. And yeah, from our side, best of luck with everything. And yeah, God bless.
thanks, Francis. I had a great time, and I hope you and all your viewers have a great night. Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Perfect. Perfect, man. Thank you so much for joining us at Africa Sports Consultancy today. We'll see you again on Friday tomorrow as we will be out announcing our partnership. And please feel free to engage with us. Feel free to send us emails. So if you have questions for Stephen Bhasera, we will forward the questions to him. And have a great evening and see you again tomorrow.